y'all, well, welcome back to my kitchen. Today, we are making the most requested video on our travel channel and the most craved thing for me when we were traveling. Today, we are making homemade, from scratch, Southern Buttermilk Biscuits. Homemade Southern Buttermilk Biscuits. I know that this is something that intimidates an awful lot of people and it seems hard to do, but it really isn't. It's so super crazy easy, you guys. So I hope after today, you feel a little more confident to do this. Now I wanna say, this is my recipe, but it's my recipe inspired by like a true Southern grandma. Now, there's a lady named Brenda Gantt on Facebook. I love her. I do. I watch all of her videos. She's just your wonderful Southern grandma from Alabama who is teaching people how to cook on Facebook, and it's the best. She reminds me of my grandmothers and my mother, and so I love to watch her because it's a little bit of home. So I took her basic recipe and I added some things to it to fit my taste preferences, which is the best part of cooking. You can do that, it's perfectly fine. So I'm gonna go over the ingredients for you and some tools that I think you need in order to make the perfect Southern Buttermilk Biscuit. The most important thing you're going to need, you guys, to make these really deliciously good is a cast iron skillet. Now, I used to be of the school of thought to put them on a baking sheet, spread them out, and bake them. I no longer think that. You really should be putting them in a cast iron skillet. It gives them a beautiful crust on the bottom and they rise beautifully together when they're all sort of close and kind of smushed in there together in a cast iron skillet. So we're gonna grease this with some extra shortening and put that in there. So you need your skillet. Now, I'm not as good as Miss Brenda. She's been making biscuits longer than I've been alive. So she's got a lot of practice on me. So I'm actually gonna use a pastry cutter to cut in my shortening, which we'll do in a moment. So that's something I think you need, as well as a sifter and a biscuit cutter. Now you can use large biscuits. A biscuit cutter with this, you'll get fewer biscuits. You'll get about 9, whereas with a medium-sized biscuit cutter, you'll get 12 to 14. You need your shortening. I always like to have a spatula so I don't miss anything in my bowl. You need your flour, some baking soda, a little bit of sugar, and buttermilk. Let's talk some specifics about your flour and your buttermilk. Now, I'm using self-rising flour. The reason for that is self-rising flour already has some salt and baking powder in it, so it's one less ingredient that you're gonna actually have to measure out and put in your bowl and figure out how much you need. I think it's just easier to use self-rising flour. It's also what Miss Brenda uses, and it's also what my Memaw uses when she makes drop biscuits. So honestly, you guys, these women have been making biscuits forever, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm just, following their lead. Now, let's talk buttermilk. This looks like a product placement, and it's not. I genuinely prefer this brand. Now, growing up, Brahms is a dairy in Oklahoma, and it evokes all of the feels for me because it's nostalgic. They are actually an ice cream place that is also a dairy that has like a little store. So you can go buy all your dairy products that they make, and I think they're the best. And I finally live near one. So I buy all of my dairy products there at Brahms, and my sausage and my bacon, because I think theirs is just better. So I'm using their buttermilk. It's also the A2 buttermilk, which is easier on your system. Having traveled as much as we have, we've kind of formed an intolerance to some forms of dairy. One of those is milk. Milk does not sit with us very well. So I try to use the A2 as much as possible because you cannot use non-dairy milk for biscuits. It doesn't work. So we choose the A2. So we're gonna do Brahms buttermilk today. Now make sure you shake your buttermilk up really good because sometimes it settles here in the bottom. So just give it a good shake and you're ready to go. One very important thing to mention about Brahms is they are not sponsoring me, but if they want to, I'm all about that. Just throw that out there for you. Dream come true. Let's hop in, guys. The first thing that we're going to do is we're actually gonna sift our flour, our sugar, and our baking soda. So I'm gonna take my cute little sifter here, put it in my bowl, and I'm gonna do this in a couple of shifts, just simply because this is more flour than I can actually sift at one time because my sifter's kind of small. I need a spoon to get it in there. Dump some of it in here in my bowl. One other really important thing to mention about Miss Brenda is she's a true Southern grandma in that she doesn't measure anything because she doesn't have to. She does it all by sight, feel, and just what she thinks it should look like. I'm not that good. And I know for people who have never made biscuits before, there is no way they're gonna be able to do that. So I've kind of deconstructed her recipe best of my ability and put measurements to it. Now, the two things I'm adding to this recipe that she does not is baking soda and sugar. The reason for that is I like a sweeter biscuit. I don't care for a sour, salty biscuit, which some people do. To each their own, it's not my thing. So that's the reason why I'm adding just a little bit of sugar and some baking soda, because I like the rise you get with the baking soda. So we're just gonna sift these together and then I'll do the rest of my flour. Alrighty, I got the last bit of my flour in there. We're just gonna sift this and we're gonna be ready to go. Alrighty, I'm gonna set my dishes back here. I'm gonna go ahead and grease my cast iron skillet because everything goes pretty quick after this and you get really messy. And so it's easier if you already have your skillet already greased. I just took a little, said it was a tablespoon, but of leftover shortening. I am using butter flavored shortening today instead of the regular just because I think it's kind of tasty. So I'm gonna put this and just grease my sheet. I'm gonna take this and grease my pan. Now you wanna do the sides and you wanna do the bottom. You wanna grease this all over. Those of you who may not enjoy using your hands in the kitchen, this is not gonna be the recipe for you. Because you just gotta do it. You gotta get in there and get messy. Make sure I got all areas, because it will stick. If you haven't greased it well, it's gonna stick. Okay. Got that there. Let me wash my hands real quick. We'll dive in. We've got our flour, our sugar, and our baking soda sifted. So now comes the good part. So we're going to take our shortening and we're gonna put it in our bowl and we're gonna cut it with our pastry cutter. The consistency that you want is kind of, if you've ever made a homemade pie crust, it's very similar. You want just like it to be a little pilly. Okay, drop the whole thing in. Take your pastry cutter and then just, I like to flour mine a bit and then just start breaking it down. Pastry cutters can be quite sharp, so be careful when you're working with this. If you need to clean it off for any reason or anything like that, be very careful that you don't cut yourself. I always try to go from the top part sort of down so I don't cut myself, because the bottom part of your pastry cutter, it'll get you if you're not careful. So just pull your flour from your sides there. Just kind of cut in your shortening. This shortening is what's gonna make your biscuits soft and puffy and just the absolute best. There is a lot of debate of butter versus oil versus shortening. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to Southern food. I know it's not epically healthy for you, but you also don't need to be eating biscuits every morning for a healthy diet. So I don't feel like it's so bad. If you're making biscuits, you should make them the good way and enjoy them. Okay, I think I'm there. Clean off my cutter here. What's really funny, see there's your consistency that you're looking for, because we've got a little flour. Let me mix up my hands a little bit. Put my cutter back here. My hands, get her all mixed around. But see how it kind of flakes? Like that, you can still see those little pieces of shortening in there, but it's pretty well dispersed. That's what you want. Okay. Now, measure out. Probably should have done this already now that my hands are all dirty, but shaking it. So I'm gonna measure out my buttermilk here. Try to be as exact as you possibly can with the recipe, but it's not gonna kill you if you're not. That's all right. Okay, so I'm gonna make a little bowl here in the middle. And I'm gonna start to mix it. I may end up using a fork to help me mix this if it doesn't work real well, like I said. Now I'm gonna pour my buttermilk in the very middle of my little well here I've made. All right, now we're gonna start mixing it up. Like I said, I tend to use a fork because I don't do as good of a job mixing with my hands. For some reason, I have some difficulty with that hand movement, but we're gonna give her a shot today. All right, I am gonna clean my hands off and finish it up with a fork. One thing I wanna encourage you guys to do is, I think one reason people are afraid of cooking and food and that kind of stuff is because they're not sure they're doing it right. Now, do what makes you feel comfortable, guys. Follow your recipes, do what makes you feel comfortable, and just try it. Give it a shot. This is one of those that I would love, love, love to see you guys try because it's not as hard as it seems and it's so incredibly delicious. All right, I'm gonna clean off my surface here because in order to kind of cut these, we need to flour our surface really, really well. So the only thing that needs to be here is my cast iron skillet and a really well floured surface. So I'm gonna keep my biscuit cutter, put the rest of this away, and we'll be right back. I've got my self-rising flour here. I'm gonna just flour my surface really well. This is a sticky dough, and it's supposed to be, so flour our surface really, really well. Then you wanna flour your hands really well. So they're good and white. Now you also want to do the same with your biscuit cutter. Dip that in there so it's good and floured as well. So let's take our deliciousness out of here. This behind me so it's out of the way. Okay, take a little flour, put it over top, my hand again, and we're just gonna pat it and we're gonna roll it a couple times. Now this is not a dough that you need to take a rolling pin to, you guys. You literally just need to move it around a few times and you're just gonna pat it out. You're not gonna overwork it because if you overwork it, your biscuits are gonna be really, really tough. They're gonna be like hockey pucks. So I'm just gonna pat this out till it's about a ½ inch or so thick. You can see your bits of shortening still in there. That's gonna make it extra delicious, I promise you. We've already dipped, so do it again. Dip it again just to make sure I'm good. And we're gonna set it in our lovely little cast iron there. Do your next one. Actually, I'm gonna take a big kind of chunk of this and put it right there. A lot of people, my Memaw used to do this, they'll use like a little glass to cut biscuits out. What's really kind of important about a good biscuit cutter is to make sure that it has an opening on top like this one does. The reason for that is if you use a cup, it's very easy for your air to get stuck in there. And if that happens, your biscuit will get stuck and you won't have any way to get it out. So try to make sure and either buy a biscuit cutter or find something to use that is open on both sides. Now when putting them in your cast iron, start around the edges and then go towards the center. The edge of my pan is it angles up a bit, so that'll be all right. We're gonna take our dough, we're gonna put it back together and grab a little more flour. Okay. We're just gonna pat it back out. Same thickness, same everything. And we're gonna keep going until you either run out of dough or you fill your pan up. Try to shove that last one in there. Let's see. Got 13 in there this time, and I have a little extra dough. Now what you can do with this, you can actually save this and you can make fried pies with it, or you know, whatever you want. Or if you have an extra little tiny cookie sheet, you can go ahead and cut what's left over and just put them together in the middle and you'll be just fine. You don't have to grease a regular cookie sheet like you do cast iron, but it won't have that same crusty bottom. So I have a little bit left over, not enough for like fried pies or anything, but I may put them on a cookie sheet. Have a little extra. The most important thing about baking your biscuits is your temperature. Now, Miss Brenda puts it on 500. That freaks me out because that's hot. My Memaw puts it a bit lower because when she does drop biscuits, they cook at a different rate. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these in the oven at 475 for about 15 to 20 minutes. You wanna keep an eye on them because you want them to be a nice golden brown. I'll show you when they're done. So we're gonna take them and put them in the oven. Perfect. All right, y'all, here they are. What you want is a beautiful brown, sort of golden glow on top. It's perfectly fine that it didn't reach all the edges of my cast iron, simply because you want your cast iron to be really good and seasoned, and the best way to do that is to use it. And so that's why I went ahead and greased the whole bit, because you never know how tall they're gonna be. So let's take them out, see what we got. Be very careful with your cast iron because it will burn you. It gets hot, hot. It holds heat like none other, so be very, very careful. Get your heavy duty oven mitts out for that one. Oh yeah. Look at that. Perfection. They're perfectly done, puffy. These cooked for right at 20 minutes. So I know everybody's ovens are different. Now yours may have to cook longer, it may have to cook shorter, I don't know. So just keep an eye on it. They should lift right off of here for you, not give you any trouble. I got 13 out of this batch that went in my actual cast iron. I had a couple extra room for a couple more. Oops. All right. Now, of course, we're gonna have to try one. Now we've got a little bit of butter here and just a tad of apple cider butter because fall. So let's try one. I'm just gonna go for this one on the side here. Cut it open. You don't really even have to do much, just kind of, oh yeah. Perfect. Put a little butter. I might even let Jimmy try some. Poor thing's looking over here at me, hoping. Okay, put a little butter on top. Both of them here. All right, let's They're not sweet. Don't let that sugar fool you, but they're not sour either. It is the perfect neutral palate for some butter, some jam, apple butter, pumpkin butter, because October, or even gravy. Now, these are fantastic. And on the bottom, check out that beautiful golden crispy bottom. It's exactly what you want. A really good biscuit. So I hope you guys give this a shot. I hope you love them. If you do, please tag me on Instagram. I want to see pictures of your biscuits. If you have a different recipe that your grandma's always made that you want me to give a try, please also tag me in that or put that in the comments down below. In the description, you'll be able to see a link to my website with the full recipe so you can make these at home. And on my social media will be there too. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give them a shot, enjoy them. I'll see you next time.